I don't know if you've ever watched very many of my videos when I'm painting or drawing, but I don't talk much and never really thought about it till now. Um, the reason I don't talk much is I'm self-taught. Been drawing since just before I was 5. Long story with that one. But I don't talk much because I just do it, and you know, the fact that I was never really trained on anything, and I can use any media that I'm aware of. I've used everything. I do okay, I think, with everything. Um, but I just don't tend to talk much because, like I say, I wasn't really taught. Um, I just I just learned myself to do things, and I'm still learning every day because I like that fact, because when somebody shows you how they do things their way, um, it tends to put barriers on you. It's like it puts limits, or that's the way I feel. It would have done that to me. Kind of like when you see. I saw a picture once on Facebook where a horse was tied to a bucket of water with a rope. Well, of course, the horse thinks that he can't move. He's tied down and he can't go anywhere. So he's got an unrealistic barrier. So I kind of think that way. And I just kind of go my own way, and I don't talk much. I don't explain much. But because I just do it as I go, I don't really think about it. Although I do constantly consider reality, how things really are, however I'm working on things. Like which direction the light comes in, the various shades, I take just everything into consideration as I go along, but then again, I have the freedom of constantly just changing whatever I want to do, and I keep using, I use washes, to get my transparencies. I like that. I'll use my opaques, and I'll layer and on and on and on, and I'll build. And growing up, I would always just paint, the conventional way. I would do acrylics. I actually started out with watercolors, temperas. Actually, I used tempera a lot. Got pretty good with it. Got pretty realistic. Did a lot of landscapes and stuff. Old barns, the routine. But I tried everything. I've done everything. Every media, every single media that I'm aware of, I've used. I've never had a problem with it because I sit there and I'd teach myself how to use it. And as far as worrying about how good something is, if it looks good, if it's not good enough, if it looks, you're always happy with something when something looks good. But it doesn't matter to me because I don't paint to worry about what somebody else thinks. I just do it because I do it for myself, or just for pleasure. That's the only reason I do it, for a whole different reason. Now I'll do paintings for people, or I have, and I'll do a portrait or something in pencil. Of course, you have to. It's got to look good because it has to be right, because people know this person, so they're instantly, especially if it's somebody that a lot of people know, they're instantly going to spot when something's not right. If the eyes aren't right, if anything's out of proportion, they're instantly going to spot it. So I do that stuff, but I mean, I do pretty good at that, or I think I do. That's just my opinion. I think I do all right. Everything I say is always all right. But I mean, I just don't worry about how well it looks to someone else. I just like what I do, so it's just, like I say, it's just for my own enjoyment. Even like this right here, I'm actually building up transparencies on it. None of this picture is going to look like it is right now. All of this, I'll keep building it up. This is a little monkey I'm doing for a lady. And none of this is filled in yet. I'm just playing with ideas, looking at shadows. Of course, on this side I've got a little blend like of the colors in the background indicating that there's, you know, plants in the distance that's blurring out, which your eyes will fade out when it's focusing on the foreground. And I'm going to do something with that too in here. I'll probably go in here and put some of the sky in here and this and that and blend some of this in here and kind of work it along. But I'll just play with it and play with it. But and then I'll have to bring his hair down over across of that. So I just keep working how I want to do it. Bird of Paradise. These are actually, they're an orange. I just stuck some yellow in there because it's a yellowish orange, and I was just playing, just covering it up, just seeing where I was going. Most of this is where I was seeing where I was going. But now I'm actually starting the detailing, which is going to take a while. I got the eyes glossed out, got them deep, and they're pretty well in, and then I'll keep shading around to make this match the little monkey. You got to catch his expression. They're like little people. You have to catch the expression. And of course he's coming out of the shadow of the brush he's playing. He's coming out, he's grabbing the old piece of dead driftwood, and I'm working on this too. I'll be building this up with the browns and everything and the shadowing. Morning glories, I'll go in and blend those in and detail them up, the leaves, the shadowings, the highlights and all of that. So eventually come together, and the stones, I'll work in the stones eventually all to where they need to be. So eventually everything will suddenly come together, but I'll pick it to death. I'll probably play with it 3 or 4 days, maybe even a week, before I actually get it just how, until I'm kind of satisfied with it. But you can keep picking a painting to pieces, and the more you pick at it, it'll keep going detail, 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 detail. And like on the leaves here, I've actually started on those, but I've got to put highlights in it. And you want the sun to look like, because these would be a semi-gloss, and because I use different glosses, I'll use flats, semi-gloss, and gloss. These would be a semi-gloss. The wood will be a flat, which of course all of this will seal the painting. His hair will be flat. I've done put the high gloss for the eyes, and they're deep. Got his little reflections going on there. But the morning glories, the leaves on those will be flat because they tend to look flat, and on and on and on. Of course, you know, you got your blooms and everything will be in here, and this will be open, and there's some yellows in here, and all of that. But anyway, getting back to painting, everything I used to always paint, I would just do it in a conventional way, like I see everybody else pretty well do. Well, I kind of got pretty fast with that, so after a while I just started dealing with media, modeling paste, and I just started whipping it on there with a palette knife and throwing my shapes in there, and it just made things more interesting. It is a painting. I mean, rather if I just stick the paint up in it, you know, with the color and put it in, and I pop it on there with a knife, whatever, it's still a painting. It's still a painting over a sculpture texture. So it is a texture painting. But where this stuff gets tricky is when you have shadows and to the left here, and your light's coming down from right to left, for example. When the light hits these areas that stick out here and there, you have to constantly be aware of your highlights, where things are going to be brighter, where they're going to be darker. And you got to keep in mind too whether you're looking at it from below, if you're looking at it from higher above, from the right, from the left. It just, the picture will constantly change the way it looks. And therefore you got to keep in mind, since it's kind of a two-dimensional, those shadows naturally occur within themselves, so the shadowing changes on its own because it creates its own shadows depending on which direction the light's hit it, and whether it's artificial or is it natural. And right now, this picture right here is actually, I'm using floodlights, and this is all artificial light. So of course your spectrum's not going to be good, and your colors aren't going to look totally correct. So that's the way it's looking right now. If I had this turned around and the sun was hitting it from an angle, say indirectly enough, but it lights it up, the spectrum, all these greens will be deeper. The little bit of brown shadowing in here would be deeper, and it would look like totally different. The wood when I get it all done, it would look totally more natural. Where in the artificial light, it'll look good, but it just, everything is different in natural light, and I prefer painting in natural light. What I'll do is I'll knock a lot of this around and work under a couple of bright floodlights, and then when I start getting to the point that I start the finishing details here and there, I'll go back over here and on the over areas and in the natural light, and then I'll get the colors I'm looking for to pop out. So right now, like I say, I'm just roughing it in probably 95% of it, and then the rest 5% I'll do natural light. But yeah, getting back to, that's what I'm saying. I don't talk much because I've never had nobody sit on top of me and tell me, this is what you need to do. No, you need to change that. I just do it, and I do watch other people's videos, but I do not try to do anybody else's style. I just do my own. Even drawing, I just draw my own way, and I like the independence of that. The freedoms is just, and no barriers in art anyway. That's what makes art is the freedom of not being tied down to barriers and limits, because that's just mental. Art is just unlimited to however creative the individual is and the capability of that individual, and it's according to the person and his skills. But I don't see art as you're physically painting, but I more see it as a feeling than just sitting and thinking and putting into it and overthinking something. I just hate that. Now, pencil drawing, especially a poetry, is totally different. You've really got to think about that one really hard, because you're really up against a lot of odds with critiques. You're gonna have that from a pencil drawing. So if it ain't right, you're gonna know it within a minute. You're gonna know it the minute you throw it out there, and people are gonna say, "Hey, that don't look right," or someone will say, "Yeah, that looks pretty good," or "Hey, I like that." That's just the way it works. That's the real world. You have to take the punches, and just like you have to take the punches. Just like if somebody says, "Hey, that looks great," that makes you feel good. But if somebody turns around and says, "Hey, that just don't look good," or "that don't look right," it's just constructive criticism, and everybody has their opinion, and they have the right to that, and that's just the way it is. But anyway, I haven't worked on this monkey in a long time. About 6 months, I guess, 7 months. Because I've been doing a lot of other stuff too, and so I'm back on it now, and I'm gonna try to get it finished up for this lady. She's been real patient with me, and it's like I say, it's not a case of I'm doing it for money, so it's not that. I really don't care about money, because money has a bad negative effect too, I feel, as far as doing artwork, because that pressure, I just don't like that pressure. It's just not the same when you're having to do it under those circumstances. So I try to leave that alone and stay away from it. So anyway, I'm back to work on this now, and I'll throw a few more out, and they're bits and pieces, because if I sit here and just constantly videoed it all the way through, I like real time anyway. I'd rather bits and piece it through. Eventually it does show it as getting done, but just kind of keep in mind that as I do it, bits and pieces, I'm just throwing out there, just showing the idea of how I do it, so that way if somebody kind of says, "Hey, that's okay, I see what he's doing," or if anybody wants to flip me a question, I try to answer everything I can when I get on there and check my channel, and I'll respond to anything. If you're not sure of something, or says, "Hey, what do you use, or how do you do that," or if that's what you're looking for, just just throw me a question, and I'll gladly answer you every detail I can about it, because hey, it's if somebody wants to do it, I'm happy for them to try to learn it, because I do enjoy it. A lot of times it really gets monotonous sometimes, because you will tie a lot of hours in it, and eventually I've gotten pretty fast with some of it, but eventually I want to get out and do a lot of plein air, and I want to get fast with it, but I won't put texture on it if I go that route, because it just takes too long, because you got cure times between the texture applications. You got to wait that out for a few days, and on and on and on. Depends on how thick it is. And if you're doing plein air out there, I think I'd prefer watercolor, and I do like using an acrylic, a diluted acrylic, and you dilute it down to where it's like watercolor, and I can make it look like watercolor, and I've done that quite a few times, and I like that too. And I might even go that route because it's just, I mean, it's just, to me there's just more to work with on that because it being so thick. I could just I just think I got more possibilities with the media that way. But I'm going to try it eventually. And hopefully when I get that far, maybe I'll have some good videos by then. But like I say, I'm just still experimenting around every day. And I do a lot of other things than this. I try not to just paint and draw all the time. I don't want to confine myself into a wall either, into an enclosed room, because I think that'll make you stale too, because the key to being creative is you got to get out in the world. You got to keep your mind going, and if you just stay put too long, I've sat for weeks at a time in front of paintings and just stay on it, lose hours, lose days, forget to eat, forget to sleep, and it just makes so much work out of it. It's just kind of changes everything. So, but yeah, like I say, if you have any questions, just throw it at me. I gladly answer anything I can for you.